Good evening, everyone. I'm Catherine Crowley, and I'm the superintendent of East Providence Public Schools. And thank you so much for joining us this evening and allowing us to present our reentry plan to you. A great many people put a lot of time and effort into this plan. This initiative was led by Dr. Sandra Ferrand, and RIDE required every school district in the state of Rhode Island to do this reentry plan. And in actuality, this plan has three parts to it. There are three plans. The first plan is total face-to-face. The second plan is called a hybrid plan. And the third plan is total distance learning. And Dr. Ferrand is going to go into the aspects of each one of those plans for you this evening. Now, I want to emphasize that I cannot cancel school. It is the governor who is going to make the recommendation of how schools will open this year, in coordination with the Rhode Island Department of Health and the Rhode Island Department of Education. Our plan was submitted on July 17th. And we are supposed to get a response to this plan this coming Friday. Whatever modifications need to be made, we will make them. Please understand there are many questions we cannot answer because we don't have the answers to those questions yet. This is a global plan and does not get down to the intricacies of what will have to be done once RIDE approves this plan. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Sandra Ferrand.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. We have I'm going to need the host to let me share my screen. Alfred, can you give me screen sharing privileges?
Is he responding?
I'm sure he's working on it. Alfred?
Oh, he's working on it?
I hope so. Sorry, technical difficulties. Give us 1 minute. This is the first time we've had this difficulty.
Okay.
Can you try that again, Sandy, please?
Yep. Nope, it's still saying host disabled participant screen sharing.
So I'll just talk a little more. When we developed this plan, we developed it with the safety of students in mind, as well as the safety of our staff. I have been on bi-weekly meetings with the Superintendent's Association since early spring, going over all the potential issues for school to reopen. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, all the superintendents will be on a call with the governor to discuss some of the issues that we are facing. So we have been intimately involved with all the stages of development in the statewide plan. But I'm going to emphasize again, it is not up to the individual superintendent or school districts to decide. It is the governor who will make the decision in alignment with the Rhode Island Department of Ed and the Rhode Island Department of Health. And as she says, with the data that's available to her and the scientific information.
I can start talking about a little bit about the process, and then I'll show the slides while we wait for it to be fixed. So when we started this process, we needed to make sure that we set our district priorities. So as a committee, first and foremost, we prioritize the health and safety of our students and our staff. We also focused on equity to make sure that all students would get what they need. Collaboration, really looking at working with all stakeholder groups to make sure that people had a voice in the decision-making process. Innovation, resilience, and flexibility all are going to be required in order to make this plan come to life. Some of you, hopefully all of you, received a letter from the superintendent talking about the planning process. So we have a district task force, and that's made up of 21 individuals, members from all different groups, and that task force has been overseeing the entire process. From the task force, we created 4 subcommittees. One was focused on teaching and learning, and that was chaired by Principals Bill Black and Anne Marie Scott. One was operations and business services, and that was chaired by our Director of Operations, Diana Clocken. One was physical environment and safety, and that was chaired by Principal Lori Marchand. And then we had our social emotional learning committee, and that was chaired by Principal Rob Perry and Director of Pupil Personnel, Leslie Anderson. Each of those committees had approximately 15 members who worked on those particular areas. They spent hundreds of hours examining all the issues that fell under each of those categories and helped us to put together a plan that we sent to RIDE that was a little over 100 pages long that had all of the information for reopening the district. So, we're grateful for all of the people, including parents, community members, teachers, administrators, secretaries, paraprofessionals that all spent a lot of time in the last few weeks really putting this together to make it ready as soon as possible. The plan was created based on the Rhode Island Department of Education and the Rhode Island Department of Health guidance. You can see that guidance if you go to the Rhode Island Department of Ed website. It's an extensive document and it spelled out the scenarios that we had to follow. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we move on. As the superintendent said, a draft was submitted on July 17th. We had it done earlier than that. We submitted it to a consulting group that the state had working with us. They gave us some feedback. We revised and we submitted it to RIDE last Friday and expect feedback on the plan by this Friday. And then we'll need to make any revisions that they ask us to make. Again, I know the superintendent just said that, but we really want to emphasize the decision for re-entry will be made by the governor and how we re-enter will be made by the governor. So we're going to show you a full in-person scenario. We're going to show you a partial scenario, and we're going to show you a limited scenario. And we'll explain how we got to each of those. Let me see, try again, getting my screen up. Oh, all right. Try it again.
And what we also want to emphasize is the fact that this plan is fluid. It changes and will change.
Okay, so these were the first 2 slides that we just discussed, and it is changing daily. We are updating documents. We are making changes to documents. We are adding documents constantly. So those documents can all be found on the district website, and we'll refer to that later on. So I want to start by getting into the scenarios, and I know there may be some confusion over this, so I really want to try to explain this carefully so that it's clear to people and they understand why and what each one means. So I'm going to speak briefly about elementary. I know this is a middle school focus, but you may have children in other schools. So elementary return scenarios. So if the governor says we're going to return full in person, we plan to bring back all students in grades K to 5, Monday through Friday, in person, in classrooms, and all pre-K students. The group size can be no more than 30, and that includes any adults that are going to enter the classroom. So we do not have any classes of 30. In fact, most of our classes are below 25 and lower. So the number of students, we would take the number of students, and that's how many additional adults could enter that classroom and work with that pod of students. So you'll hear us call it a pod, you'll hear us call it a stable group, and those terms are interchangeable. So if the governor says we return full in person, that's how elementary would come back. If we have to go for some reason to a partial return, students in elementary, we would bring in K-2 and our special populations. Grades 3 to 5 would be on distance learning at home with teachers doing distance learning. And I'll talk more about that after. And all pre-K would also be in person. Part of the guidance focused on bringing transition grades back into school first. So our K, our younger grades, because we're focusing on learning to read with those grades. So the decisions that were made based on the guidance and based on what we really thought would be best for the district to return. Our limited return requires us to reduce the population, again, that would return to school down to 25%. So the governor has said if we come back with a limited return, we can only have 25% of our students come into the school building. So our plan would be that grade K would be in school every day with our special populations, and that grades 1 through 5 would do distance learning at home, and all pre-K would come in person. We've had to adjust school hours, so school hours will be 9:15 to 3, and that is because we need additional time in between bus routes to make sure that the buses are sanitized for the next grade level. What the elementary day will look like would be students would return to the classroom all day, so they are going to stay in that classroom, and special subjects would push in. So if I'm a first grade, I may have art every day for the first quarter. I may have music every day for the second quarter. I may have PE every day for the third quarter. Usually they would have those one special every day, but we are trying to reduce the number of adults that have contact with that stable group. So students will get art, let's say, every day for the entire quarter. Outside activities will be strongly encouraged. So we are recommending that teachers take their classes outside as much as possible. And we'll talk about masks and breaks later on, but outside activity, outside classes will be encouraged. On the days when students are not in school, distance learning will take place. So any students, so let's say on a partial return day, grades 3 to 5 would not be coming in, they would be doing distance learning. So they would be doing it all week. It doesn't, we'll see that with the middle school, and that'll be explained a little more. So the middle school return scenarios. Once again, if the governor calls for a full in-person return, we would bring back on Monday and Tuesday all grade 6, because they're our transition grade and they're our youngest students. We would bring in grade 7, and we would bring in our special populations. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, when those students are not in school, they will be doing distance learning. So it's not just 2 days of schooling a week, it's 2 days in person for grade 7, and then the rest of the week they would do distance learning. On Wednesday, all students will be home distance learning. And on Thursday and Friday, we would have all grade 6 back in, all of grade 8 in our special populations. The reason that Wednesdays are a distance learning day is so that we can deep clean the building between the time that grade 7 and grade 8 came in. We chose the partial hybrid model with grade 7 coming in 2 days and grade 8 coming in 2 days, because we felt that strongly that that was the safest way that we could return the majority of our students for a full in-person. For partial return, Monday would be grade 6 and one team of 7th grade, because again, we're being asked to reduce the number of students that enter the building on a partial return. Tuesday would be grade 6 and the other grade 7 team and special populations. Wednesday, again, all grades would be distance learning so that we could clean the buildings. Thursday would be grade 6 and grade 8 team 1. And Friday would be grade 6, and grade 8 team 2. If we had to go to the limited return, because we were directed to, then we would need to reduce the population down to 25%. In doing so, we would bring in one grade level, which is all of grade 6. That would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday will remain a distance learning day for 6th grade. And then grade 7 and grade 8 would be doing distance learning for all 5 days if we had to go to 25% capacity. The school hours will be adjusted from 7:45 to 1:30. So we will dismiss students early, again, in order to add time between the bus routes so that we can make sure that the buses are completely sanitized before the next group of students get on the buses. So the middle school model will have students remain in the classroom all day. And again, we would have our special subjects or itinerants pushing into the classroom. So the first quarter, your student may get art or music or PE or a foreign language or any of the other technology, computers, any of the electives that we offer at the middle school would be done every day, and that would be for a full quarter, and then they would rotate through each quarter. Again, that allows us to limit the number of adults that enter those pods of students. Again, we're strongly encouraging outside activities. We did have a parent ask about opening windows. We strongly encourage windows. I know Martin doesn't have all the classrooms with windows, but we have worked on giving each grade level 2 classrooms to work out of. So there's a little more space. So distance learning would take place on any day that students are not in school. For the high school, again, the high school, we have almost 1,500 students. So again, we needed to make sure that we could return all our students safely and make sure that the hallways were safe, entering and exiting the buildings were safe. So we reduced the population in full in person to 50%. So all grades 9 and 11 would come on Monday and Tuesday, special populations. Wednesday, again, distance learning for cleaning purposes. Thursday and Friday would be all grade 10 and 12 in our special populations. If we go to a partial return, it looks the same as the full in person. And that is because we were already reducing the capacity of the building to 50%. So we kept the partial return in place. If we are required to go to a limited return by the governor and we need to reduce to 25% of the building capacity, we would go with grade 9 in special populations on Monday, grade 11 Tuesday, distance learning on Wednesday, Thursday would be grade 10, and Friday would be grade 12. Once again, the school hours have been adjusted from 7:25 to 12:30 in order to sanitize the buses. And anytime, once again, and I want to emphasize this because I do feel like there might have been some confusion about this, anytime that students are not in school, they will be doing distance learning at home. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that's going to look like because it will look different than what we saw in the spring. So we had questions. So just to define special populations, so those would be our students that are in self-contained, a therapeutic program, or any of our highly specialized special education classes. So all of those populations we would want to bring back either every day or 4 days a week, depending on the grade level. So moving into health and safety, and this is probably our longest section, we want to talk about face coverings. So staff and students are required to wear face coverings, both entering and exiting the building and while they are in the building. So some of you that read the plan may see that this is a little different, that students we were highly recommending students. As we said, guidance is changing very quickly. And so at this point, we're making it a requirement to wear face coverings. If for some reason your child cannot wear a face covering, then we ask that you reach out to the principal if there's a medical reason and that you work through that with the principal. We will build in intentional mask breaks into the day. We know it's a lot to wear a mask all day, but we're going to try and give them breaks throughout the day where they can take off those masks, get some fresh air, hopefully some outside time, and hope that will help, ease the wearing of the mask for the full day. Again, please contact your principal if you need to discuss medical exemptions for masks. Movement in the hallways, and this will look different in each of our schools, and we are currently working with all our principals to do a walkthrough of their building for the second time, and to make sure that we assess each building. So hallways will be one way whenever possible. In some of our buildings, we've noticed that is not possible because they're dead ends. So when it is possible, we're going to make all hallways one way. Principals know that students should not be walking against each other at the same time. So they should not be facing face to face. So they'll work out a plan so that multiple classes aren't walking in opposite directions during the day. And we have visuals ready to go that will be posted on the floor and the walls throughout our buildings so that students and staff know which direction to move in a building. Arrival and dismissal. Students will enter the building one way through multiple doors with directions clearly and visually marked on floors and walls. So we have looked at, many of our buildings have access to outside through the classrooms. So that would be our first choice. If not, we will be spreading students out to enter through different doors throughout the building so that we don't have groups of students congregating and waiting to get through a doorway. And principals will be communicating their school-based plans with their families as we start to build those out, which we're in the process of doing right now. Again, individual school plans will vary. There will be a no visitor policy in all of our buildings. So we are not allowing any outside visitors. Parents that come, whether to pick up students, maybe for a doctor's appointment or for any type of appointment. In most of our schools, we have vestibules. You'll be asked to wait in that vestibule, or we're going to ask that you not enter the school building and we will bring your child to you. For the safety of our staff and students, we do not want people that are not part of the building coming into the building. Classroom layouts. So classrooms will be assigned in ways that minimize distance and traffic. So teachers will look at the flow of their classrooms, principals will work with them, the way we bring students into a classroom, back to front, the way we exit a classroom, front to back with students, the way they move will all be communicated to students in the classroom, to avoid any of those face-to-face interactions. We are maintaining 6 feet of distance whenever possible. We have gone through all of our buildings. We are mapping out classrooms. We are measuring desks. We are moving through the schools one at a time. Classrooms that have tables that are not long enough, we've been replacing with desks. So it's a work in progress, but the district is moving along well with setting up all of the classrooms. Any desks and tables, we are, the 6 foot of spacing is what we're going for in every classroom. Students will always face the same direction, so they'll be facing front of the room. We've asked teachers to move all non-essential furniture from their classrooms so that we can maximize the space in the classroom. Seating will be assigned in the classroom. And then we've also removed all porous materials. So any type of furniture that's not plastic, or we've taken out beanbag chairs and stuffed animals and anything that would be porous material. So when we talk about dining, so the high school quickly will be a grab and go breakfast in the classroom, and they'll take it to the classroom. So we'll have kiosks set up throughout the building for students to grab breakfast and bring it with them. The same thing will take place for lunch at the high school. So they'll grab their bag lunches as they leave for the day. In middle school, so it will be the same for breakfast. We will have grab and go kiosks. So if a student gets breakfast in the morning, we will have kiosks set up. Students will be able to go by, get their breakfast packaged, and go to the classroom. They'll be able to eat breakfast in the classroom. We will be delivering lunch to the classrooms. They will be bagged lunches at this point. We are exploring possibly a hot lunch option as we move forward. And we're also going to be asking that you order in advance. And all of that information, as we work through all of those details, will be sent home to parents. So you're aware of how you would do that and what the options are. We are going to encourage outdoor dining whenever possible. So getting the students outside for lunch, as much as possible when the weather is nice. Same thing for elementary. So all breakfast will be in classrooms, all lunches will be in classrooms. They'll be delivered to the door. And we would ask that students bring water from home because we will be shutting down all of the water fountains in the buildings. School events. So as of right now, our open house events or our back to school events would be held outdoors or virtually. Right now, we're leaning towards virtually. Gatherings can never exceed the state maximum group size. Student and parent orientations will be held outside or virtually. So things like pre-K, K, 6th grade, 9th grade, that type of orientation, we would try to do a virtual right now, but we'll monitor the situation as as we get closer to the start of the school year. Kindergarten screenings will be performed individually in a common room or preferably outdoors. We'll be making appointments with parents to bring their students in, and then cleaning protocols will follow each visit. At this time, there will be no after-school activities or clubs or sports right now, but we are not sure what the plan will be for sports. So the Rhode Island Interscholastic League and the Middle School League are still working on that guidance. So at this time, we're going to say, it's to be determined whether sports will be held, but really the after-school activities probably at this point would not take place. But again, we're waiting for further guidance on that. And as we said, things are changing rapidly. So we will update you as we have more information. So screenings for health, what we are asking is that parents complete a daily symptom check and submit a Google form or a paper copy if needed. Parents will be called if the form is not submitted. So we are asking you, and I believe there are 8 questions. And one of the questions we got from one of the parents talks about what if a child has, allergies and they're sneezing or they have a runny nose. So the questions are the Rhode Island questions, and they do ask, does your child have any of these symptoms that are not related to other conditions? So if your child has allergies and it's not a good time of year for them, if you know that their symptoms are allergy related, you would answer the question accordingly. So we are asking parents to do this every morning to screen their child for symptoms before they send them into school. And under no circumstances would we expect that a child would come to school if they were sick. It's more important now than ever that we make sure that we keep them home if they're showing any of the symptoms. So staff will also complete a health screening, and it will be a Google form, and they'll be required to do that every day before they enter the building. We've been asked about students and staff policy for illness if it happens during the school day. So you can find our full document on the district website, and there is it's a 3-page policy, so I didn't want to post it here right now, but we have an isolation room in every one of our schools, and there is a protocol for if a student or staff member displayed any symptoms that were COVID related and how that would be handled. So that you can find in the full policy document. And we've been asked several times about a quarantine policy. So if a student was displaying symptoms or a staff member, who would be quarantined? So that would not be our policy. That policy will be coming from the Rhode Island Department of Health. Right now, there is one for daycares and camps, but we have not been given a school policy yet. So as soon as that quarantine policy is released for us, we will make sure to share it with parents and include it in our full document on our website. So health and safety hygiene. So we are going to encourage students and staff and provide regular opportunities to make sure that they have time to wash their hands throughout the day. There will be hand sanitizer in all classrooms and the hallways. Desks will be wiped down if the group of students in a classroom changes. At the elementary and middle, there will be very few changes. So, the The desks would still be cleaned, but it wouldn't be needed to be wiped down between groups because the groups will remain in the room. A regular cleaning schedule will be implemented and monitored in each building, and that will be posted once complete. Signs regarding health and safety will be posted throughout the building. So those signs are ready to go. They talk about social distancing, mask wearing, washing your hands, symptoms of COVID. So all of that will be posted in all of our buildings. We will be doing training on health and safety for all students and staff. That is also coming from the Rhode Island Department of Health. So once we get that training video, we'll be doing it with our staff, and we will be emphasizing throughout the day with students the importance of washing hands, using hand sanitizer, wearing their masks. So we will work with students throughout the day to make sure that they have those opportunities. So I will say the district has secured most of our supplies, including PPE, cleaning materials, sanitizing material. We have that in our possession. We will continue to order that and make sure that it is available in all schools and all classrooms. So what will classrooms look like? So all classrooms will be spaced with students sitting 6 feet apart whenever possible. There will be no sharing of materials, so we will be working with our teachers to make sure that students have all of their own materials. Students will be in rows facing the same direction. Teacher again will maintain 6 feet of distance from the students whenever possible. There will be no close group work, and principals are currently working on the plans for their school that involve the traffic flow, the entrance and exit, hallways, and schedules. And those will be forthcoming from principals. So we wanted to show you some pictures right now of what it looks like for the classrooms that have been set up. So this is right now what a typical elementary classroom will look like this year. This is one of our middle school classrooms. So again, the desks, as you can see, are separated 6 feet apart. And then this is what our high school classrooms would look like. So this is the section that I want to make sure that, that we're very clear about. There was a little bit of confusion here. So you as parents and guardians will have 2 choices this year. You will be able to send your child back for in-person education, and it'll be based on the 3 schedules that I spoke about earlier. So whatever the governor declares, whether she declares full, partial, or limited, would be what in-person education for your child would look like. So you have the choice to choose that your child will come back to school. We are also offering a full distance learning option. So we know that some parents are concerned about sending their child back to school or their children. We also know that we have students that may have underlying medical conditions, or they may have families that have medical conditions. So we are offering parents the choice to choose a full distance learning option. If you choose that full distance learning option, we are asking that you commit to a full semester. So we are asking you to commit from August 31st to January 25th that your child would stay home to do distance learning. And the reason that we're asking you that is because we are going to need a set of teachers who will just be doing that distance learning option with your students. That distance learning option will have live lessons. There may be some recorded lessons also that students may need to go back to and use as a reference. There'll be assignments given. Distance learning, we'd look at it at the semester mark, and parents would have the opportunity to send children back to school, or they would have the opportunity to commit for the second semester if the situation was the same. So I'm also going to speak a little bit more about that. So when I refer to distance learning for the full semester, I'm talking about if you choose for your child not to come to school, then this is what it would look like for your child. So the distance learning option will be in place for students that are not returning. We sent out a survey yesterday about 2 o'clock to families regarding distance learning, and we're asking that you make a decision by August 7th. We also have the form on the district website, so you can look at the form, and if you think that that's the option you'd like to take, you can fill out that form and send it in. So again, students on distance learning, parents that choose not to send their students back to school for the first semester will have a schedule. So you may have English from 8:30 to 9:15. So we would expect that students are on the computer with their English teacher from 8:30 to 9:15. I mean, we will try to build in a little bit of flexibility in that and probably record lessons in case a student couldn't make it, but there will be the expectations that they attend class with a teacher, live classes at set times. And that would be 5 days a week. What I want to speak about now is if you decide to send your student back to school. So there are days like Wednesdays, we can use Wednesday as an example. All high school and middle school students would be home on a Wednesday. When they're home on Wednesday, they would also get live instruction. So the teacher would be teaching a class. Again, it might be English from 8:30 to 9:15. And we would expect that students on that Wednesday at 8:30 are in their English class and they're working with their English teacher. There will also be times when there's recorded lessons that students might have to watch on their own. Maybe the teacher's working with a small group and they give students a recorded lesson to watch or review. But our focus would be on live instruction on the days that students are home, not in school because it's their day, like Wednesday, the cleaning day, or because, 7th and 8th grade are not in every day. Again, we try to record those live lessons in case a student was ill or couldn't make a class. We want to make that available to them. Set schedule while they're home. And again, there was some confusion on this, so I just want to make this very clear. The expectations for distance learning will also be communicated by the school. So you'll hear from your teachers and your school principal, about the schedule. Principals will be approving those schedules. And then we did get requests from some parents about workshops or videos to help with Google Classroom and some of the other technology tools that are available and that we're using. So we would work to put that together for you. So again, you have two options. You have the in-person instruction, which could look different based on limited, partial, or full. Or you can choose full distance learning if you are not ready to send your children back to school at this point, or if they have a medical condition that you feel it would be best to keep them home. So overall instruction, whether they're on distance learning 5 days a week or whether they choose the in-person model, we are going to build in assessments, including both formative and summative, in order to make sure that we continue to monitor student progress and look for gaps in learning loss throughout the spring and summer. Special education support services such as speech, OT, and PT, and multilingual language learners will all receive instruction, whether you are on distance learning and you're home 5 days a week or whether you are in person. We are working out schedules currently at the building level to work on servicing students in the best way possible. So whether it's a teacher going into the classroom or students being pulled out of the classroom, or if we have to provide virtual services to students. Again, if, for example, a speech teacher might have multiple schools, and we would not want that teacher going into multiple schools or even really going into all of the classrooms in that building in order to make sure there's not any unnecessary exposure. So we are still working through those schedules, but those services will be provided to students. We're going to work on, we'll be reteaching based on the previous year's assessments, as well as the results of the beginning of the year testing that will take place. Grades K to 8 use iReady. So, we're going to try and get those done in person when students are in school right at the beginning of the year, and we'll do the same with students that are on distance learning. Students will take special subjects again by quarter. So first grade might have PE first quarter, second grade might have art first quarter, third grade might have music, and then it would rotate through the classes, again, in order to limit the number of adults that are entering those classrooms. We have heard both parents talk about both rigor and a balanced workload. So we are going to focus on that. Again, in the spring, we were kind of thrown into a distance learning model with very little notice. And we have been working on refining that throughout the summer so that we can, really work to make sure that students are getting what they need if we go back into that model, or if that's the model that you choose. So I also just want to note that band and chorus, part of the guidance is that there are 14 feet of space between students. So it's not the 6 feet, it would be 14 feet if we are able to hold band and chorus, and we are looking for creative solutions to that now. Again, it's a scheduling thing, and principals at the building level are working through that with our music staff. So we recognize what a difficult time this is for all of us, for families, for parents, for students, for our staff. And we have a complete social emotional plan that was developed. It is on our website on the full district plan. It addresses both students and staff needs, and we had one of our subcommittees that developed that. We hired a social emotional learning coordinator that will be providing professional development to our staff and supporting staff in helping students. All of our schools have at least one social worker, part-time psychologists, some are full-time on staff. We recognize that there are definitely going to be some issues that we'll need to work through, as we enter school. We are really going to place an emphasis on relationship building in all our classrooms. If we do enter on August 31st in person, we don't know what will happen. So just like in the spring, we could be in one day and out the next. So it's going to be essential that we build those relationships with students right away. So that will be a focus, and there's a plan in our social emotional plan for doing that. We ask that you really be proactive and that you contact the school administration with concerns that you have. If your child is afraid coming back to school, if there were issues throughout the spring and summer, please reach out to us. We want to make sure that we have supports in place for students as school starts. So technology. So the district will issue Chromebooks to all students in grades K to 12. I did have a question. Some of the Chromebooks that people have are not working. Their cameras might not have worked, or there's keys missing. We will be refreshing those Chromebooks. Students in K through 12 will take their Chromebooks home every night. If they're choosing in-person instruction, they will take their Chromebooks home every night. We will provide Chromebooks for students that are on distance learning 5 days a week. We do have a GoGuardian software installed on all of our district technology, and that helps our teachers see what's going on and what students are working on and how they can help them. And then again, we'll work to create some workshops or recording for parents on Google Classroom. That was a big request we had. So busing, I know this has been in the news a lot because this is a big obstacle to many districts. Right now, only one student is allowed per seat on the bus, except if you're siblings, then siblings may sit together. What we're asking is that if at all possible, if you have other means of transportation, we ask that you could please use that first so that students that do not have other means of transportation can take the bus. Right now, we are exploring pushing out the mileage if need be. I'm not sure if that will be necessary depending on how many students go on to distance learning or which plan we open under. So if you are a bus student, we will be reaching out to you to see what your intentions are and to see how we can work with you. So expect that will be coming later on in the next couple of weeks. So again, we think with the hybrid model at the high school and the middle school, because we are not bringing in all grades at the same time, that will definitely allow for more students to utilize the busing. So again, it's still a work in progress. We are still looking at all of our numbers, and we will be in touch with students that receive transportation at this point. So again, just as we start to wrap up, I want to stress that this plan continues to evolve daily. We are adding new material. We are changing material. You probably have read the plan and seen some things that are different in the slides. That is based on updated guidance. We are watching as schools open across the country and across the world, and trying to revise our plans as necessary. So everything in this plan is subject to change. And we really, even though we don't have approval yet, we really wanted to get the information out to the community so you could start thinking about, what you would like to do and what your decision would be going forward. So we did send out what we call our return to learn document to families. So we have the full document on the website, which, as I said, is over 100 pages, but we also tried to do an abbreviated copy for parents that was much more user-friendly, because the copy that's on the website, the full copy, was to submit to RIDE. But this we tried to do to make it more user-friendly so parents could get the information all in one place without clicking a ton of links. But you're welcome to go on the website and look at the full document. So what I want to do at this time, so we did receive many questions. We went through all of the questions, and anything that wasn't answered in the plan, I tried to pull out just so I could give answers to those questions also. So we were asked several times about what happens if a student has symptoms or a teacher has symptoms in a classroom. So we are still waiting for that quarantine plan from RIDE and the Rhode Island Department of Health. As soon as we have that, we will release that to all of you so that you can take a look at it. But that will not be a policy that we make. That will definitely come from the Department of Health. We were asked about honors classes taking place in person. And so we still intend to offer those classes. At this time, if you choose the distance learning option, we will be looking at schedules. We are not sure about scheduling yet. That is a work in progress as we see how many students and families will be choosing that option. So the substitute policy. So again, that is a policy that is in the works. We are hoping to use subs that would be in one specific building. We are asking them to commit to just subbing in that building. We also would internally use teachers in the pod that may have time off during that class if we needed to cover classes. We are well aware of the issues with introducing new people into those pods. So again, we're working with other districts around the state and to develop that sub policy. So again, that's a document that we'll be exploring further. Questions came up often about recess, movement breaks, mass breaks. We know students in all grades need that, and we are going to build those into the schedule. And again, we're going to encourage some outdoor classes as much as possible. We were also asked, if you choose distance learning, would you be able to take part in clubs and sports? And the answer to that is yes, you will be able to take part in those things if and when they are offered. And right now that's on hold. We also got a couple of questions about lockers. Will students be able to use lockers? As of right now, we will not be using lockers. Students will be in the same room pretty much all day, so they can bring their backpack and we will put those backpacks, they can put them on the back of their chair. They will be in the classroom. So we do not want to have students moving out of the classroom when it's not necessary. So, and if you have seen the locker rooms, the lockers are very close together and wouldn't allow for that social distancing. So our plan, which again is evolving, is to not use lockers at this time. So special services, so that's, I did talk about that previously, our OT, PT, resource services, services for our MLL students. Again, those are going to be a combination of push in, pull out, and virtual. If you do go on distance learning, if you have an IEP or if you have other needs, we will work to make sure those services are in place for you. And then we'll build all of that into a schedule. There was also a question where someone asked if students take part in recreational sports, if they could substitute that for PE. Unfortunately, at this point, we would not be able to allow that. The basic education plan, which governs what we offer and what we do in schools, requires students to have a certain amount of minutes of PE in school, PE/health. So we would need to continue to follow those guidelines. RIDE has said that they're not waiving any of the BEP requirements. If that does change, we would be open to looking at, some possible changes to that. But at this time, we wouldn't be able to do that. So those were all the questions that weren't covered in the presentation that parents of middle school students had asked. If you have questions, additional questions, and I'm sure this presentation probably brought up plenty of additional questions for you, please go back to the document. A lot of these questions would be answered there. We're looking at putting together an FAQ. Reach out to your principal, or as you see, we have a 20-21 reopening at epschools.ri.com. We just ask that you be patient as you wait for a response, because the people that are putting these plans together are also the people that are answering these emails. So we don't have additional staff taking that on. So it may, we're trying to respond as quickly as possible, but we ask that you please be patient with us as we work through all of this. So I want to thank you. And again, please reach out if you have additional questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point, and I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Yes, we'd like to thank you very much for tuning in this evening. We remind you that there is a separate email where you can send your questions, as Dr. Perrin said, and we will answer them as quickly as we possibly can. Again, remember, what we tell you tonight could very well change by tomorrow night or even Friday. So this is a plan that is fluid. And the more we talk, the more things we learn that we need to consider if we are going back to school at all. And so any suggestions from you would be greatly appreciated on that email site as well. So thank you again, and we wish you a safe evening. Thank you and good night.